Alrighty then, sweet. Today I'm gonna be putting a big bore kit on this KLX, little 110. Going to the 140 kit, so this will be the BBR 140 kit build thingy. Yeah. Anyways, so I've already taken the skid plate off, intake track, intake system, moved all the cables and wires out of the way, and yeah, we're about ready to start tearing down the top end. So first off, we're gonna be removing the oil pipe, and I'm gonna take the valve covers off just for, since they'll be off when I go back together. Man, I'm really bad at this. So here we go. Alright, so got the tappet covers off, the oil pipe off on the other side. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to be taking the ignition cover off. That way we can verify timing and do timing when we get her back together. So just all these Phillips, this clutch or sprocket cover, and we'll have this off in no time. And don't forget to take off your busted ass shift lever too. Maybe. Oh, just screwing around. Pretty much it, eh? Alright, now just gonna disconnect this. We can, oh, we're gonna have a mess. No! Hang on. Don't forget a little drain pan to catch all the oil. Apparently it's coming out that side. I didn't think it'd be a little bit easier than that. It's not. Alright. Mag cover off. And now we can set the timing and what have you when we go back together. So you'll have your mark on the magneto. There will be an F for fire and a T for top dead center. And the line next to the T is the one that you want lined up with your indentation on your crankcase. That little mark. Alright, so I'm just going to continue on making a mess. What we're going to do now is take this cam cover off. And then I'm going to take this little 10 millimeter off of the chain tensioner here. And I'm going to see if I can just use a screwdriver to lock it in place, or if it's going to be one of those spring-loaded ones where it's non-adjustable, it just applies pressure, and at that point we'd just be taking the whole chain tensioner off. So I'll be right back after I get this taken care of. Alright, so it is the screw style. So you're just going to go clockwise all the way until the end, and then you're going to give it a little snug twist, and it should stay locked in place. You know, if it falls back out, try again. If it keeps doing that, maybe it's just you know, a faulty lock or it's wore out. But I also had to remove the choke plunger and the ignition coil out of the way to be able to have room to put the screwdriver down in there. And now I'm just taking the cam chain tensioner off. And I'll be right back when I'm done with this. Okay, before I took the cam chain tensioner out, I should have mentioned that I rolled this to top dead center. And on the cam, it also has a top dead center mark on it. And it lines up with an indentation here on the very top of the cylinder head on the inside. Well, I'm not going to be able to get this chain off of this cam. So I'm going to have to unbolt the cam sprocket from the actual camshaft to be able to get the chain off so we can continue tearing down the top end. So I'll be right back after I break these two 5mm loose. I'll probably have to hang on to the mag while I do it too. So I'll be right back after I break them loose, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so got the cam sprocket bolts broke loose. This is the last one I'm taking out, and then we're going to see what it's like getting this camshaft off. Just pull it right off. You're going to have to lift the chain over the sprocket, you get the sprocket out, set it off to the side. Worry about timing later. Try not to rotate the cam, because as you go back together, you'll want it to be on top dead center, so you'll have play in between your intake valve and your exhaust valve before the top of the valve stem. So now that we got the cam sprocket off, it's now time to remove the cylinder head. This guy's out of the way. The cam chain tensioners guides won't be a problem. This one's already loose. Might be a pain in the ass going back together. We don't know yet. It's my first time doing a KLX. So you have these 4 cylinder head bolts here, and then you have 2 in here that are holding it down. I believe they're 8mm. Now that they're 10s, and these are 12s. And I don't think there's any on the other side. No, there's not any on the other side where the spark plug is at, and none on the bottom holding it to the cylinder. So I'm going to go ahead and take these 4 bolts off, these 2 inner bolts, and I'll be right back for the cylinder head removal. See you in a second. Alright, I got the 2 bolts out, cylinder head nuts off, and now it's time to pull the cylinder head. You might have to wiggle it a little bit. You can take, let's see here, like a pry bar or a screwdriver and go in between and just kind of give it a little prise to help. If yours is stuck, don't pry on the sealing surfaces, because you could damage them and then you'll have a leak and create more problems. So trying to be as easy as possible. Okay, so this is what I was afraid of. It just wants to come off in one whole piece. And I just don't have enough room in front of the tire. I figured this is going to happen. Just fold this front fender. Do we have enough room? Yes. Okay, cylinder head off. Be sure not to damage the sealing surfaces. You know, this would be a good time to run a wire brush over like your valves and clean up your combustion chamber if it's, you know, this nasty. This dowel pin's stuck. I'm gonna have to get him out later too. So anyways, cylinder head off. We're just gonna set it down out of the way on a rag right there. And then for the cylinder, you're gonna pull the bottom chain tensioner out, just so you you know, give yourself less things to fight while you pull everything apart. Cylinder. Fold the front fender out of the way, or you can just take it off. Be careful not to damage the sealing surfaces, both of them. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of cleaning on the. I don't have to worry about this cylinder because this cylinder is being replaced with the big bore kit. But if you're not doing a big bore kit, you'll have to clean up all these sealing surfaces. All right, so set this down out of the way, and we're going to get this piston off of there. So I'll be right back after I grab a couple tools to assist in that. Alright, so we got to remove this circlip, and there's a little notch right here, so if you have like a jeweler's screwdriver or a very small pair of needle nose pliers, you can get under here and pull this circlip out. I'm just going to pry it up and out of its groove, maybe. There we go. Got him out. Hang on to him so he doesn't fling back into the engine, which is highly unlikely, but I have seen weirder things. And then you're just going to push your piston pin through. You might need something smaller in your finger because that is a very tiny piston pin. Look at that little guy. Oh, so stinking cute. So we got the piston off, set it down and out of the way. And now it's come time to clean up the sealing surfaces. So I just have to worry about the base gasket here and the cylinder head and then all the rest of the sealing surfaces. And I'm going to clean up those valves on that cylinder head real quick too. So I'll be right back after I get these all cleaned up. Okay, so got the sealing surface cleaned up here. Got this sealing surface cleaned up here. I just used steel wool and a wire brush to kind of clean this up. It's not the greatest, but it's much cleaner than what it was. And now I guess it's time to, we could either put the cam in or start building the piston, and so I guess we'll just start building the piston. So just eyes down here on your work, Chief. So you'll have a wrist pin, your circlips, your neat little piston, tell you which side's intake, so it'll be sitting on there like a so, you know, intake. And then our fancy ass rings. Now with these ring kits, you're going to have your top piston ring, your compression ring, your second compression ring, and then you'll have your oil seal with its two little guys. So always put the oil seal on first. Spread it a little bit. Make sure that this doesn't overlap. You just want them to touch, like so. No overlap or it won't ever go on. And then, not in the same spot, but probably like 120 degrees from it, you're going to put the end of this gap from that gap. And then you'll do the same thing for the last oil seal ring. Just kind of spread it a little bit, you dirty girl. Trying to put it on the bottom. There we go. We didn't overlap over here. Perfect. Turn it again. And we're going to put the top one on now. The top oil ring. I want us to set down in the second compression ring slot. Doing most of this out of camera shot, my bad. Just kind of guide them down in there. No, come on. Ta-da! Oil seal ring on. And then they'll have like a little letter on them. That's going to be facing up on top of the piston. And these two are a different thickness. So normally your thinner one is the top ring and your thicker one is the bottom ring. And we're just going to put these off to the side, 180 from each other. Bam, got them in there. I'll leave them right there, flip it around, and then make sure the letter is facing up, or number, whatever the hell it is. If it doesn't have one, then I don't think it matters which direction it faces. And then got the piston rings on. Now for one of the circlips, and I'm going to put it on the side that faces the cam chain. That way I don't have that, I don't think it'd be in the way, the cam chain guide, but just in case. We're gonna, if we can get them out of the bag. So we're just gonna put, alright, so here's my intake. It's gonna be sitting like that. This is cam chain side. So I'm just going to put it on this side. And then you're just gonna set, since this has got the sweet little end right here that you can use with needle nose pliers, you wanna set it so you don't have the gap right here. That way you can get the circlip back off in the future. But we're just gonna set them in there, kind of fingernail them in a little bit, just a little bit, and then grab some needle nose pliers. Some tiny ones would probably be your best bet. It doesn't want to, just wants to spin. Let's see here. Might require some persuasion. There we go. And it's sitting in its groove all the way around. Well, not all the way. Pulling back into it. Here. Okay, he's just a little bit out. Where's that flat blade screwdriver? Just push from the other side. So I'm push from the other side. Get it in its groove. And we are golden. Perfect. Sitting in its groove. Good. Now it's time for the wrist pin. This one doesn't want to... There we go. Perfect. Alright, wrist pin, and then the piston. So now we got to go back up to the bike, because we're putting it right on the crank. Right there. So make sure your intake mark is facing up towards the intake track. I forgot to mention, add a little bit of oil to this. This one had quite a bit of oil on it when I pulled it out of the packaging. So I'm just going to run it like this. Get them all the way in. And then we're going to go over to the other side and put the last circlip in. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so got the circlip on the other side. Make sure you got the other circlip on or you're gonna have a bad day. And now it's time for the fancy cam. New cam. Oh yeah, so sexy. Oh, makes me moist. All right, so now we're gonna have to go back down now to the cylinder head. Get you all positioned up. And you're gonna have these two number 3 Phillips that you're gonna have to take out to get this guide off. And at this time you could take your pins out and check your rockers and all that fun stuff, but I'm not worried about that. I'm just going to be replacing this cam. So I'll be right back after I get this retainer out. Okay, all right, so for this cam to come out, these rockers have to be out. Make sure you don't mix them up, and then you can get your cam out finally. Notice that the lobes are facing towards the cylinder head surface, because I mean, top dead center, you want them as far away from the rocker arms as possible. So now, new cam, I'm gonna go get some oil because this is not that oily. You can do assembly lube and stuff like that too, especially on the riding surfaces during break-in and what have you, but I'm just going to wipe it down with oil. So I'll be right back before I put this in. Alright, I'm back. Got some oil. You can pour some in a cap if you want, but just all the surfaces, and then I'm going to put some in the bearing as well, or bearings. Just wiping down all the surfaces with oil, nice and oily. Now put a whole bunch in the actual bearing and spin it around. Make sure it gets in there. Same thing for the top one, or the back side one, like right side one. All nice and oily. Make sure your lobes are facing towards the cylinder head surface when you install. You don't want it the other way around. I mean, it doesn't matter, you can spin it later on too. But, let's see, there we go. Slides right in, sets right in, just like that. And now, we got to put the rocker arms back in. So, they have a little notch in them. That's where your retainer is going to set. So, just get them started a little bit. And then you're going to set your rocker arm in there. If it will go in, there we go. Set them in there just like so. And one day, might take some finesse to line everything up. It'd be easier if I could see what I was doing. The camera's in the damn way. Alright, so got him in, setting him in there. Bada bing, bada boom. Same thing for the other side. Alright, and we got them both back in there. Now it's time to put the retainer back in. And, whoops, give me it back. Give me it back. This guy is not quite straight. That's what she said. Come on, you little bitch. There you go. Alright, now for the screws, I'm going to put some Loctite on them, so I'll be right back. Clean all this up too. Alright, you can use blue or red Loctite. I used red here, not very much, just a dab on the very end of the threads, and we're just going to tighten this down. Once we get this tightened down, it'll be time to stab on the cylinder. So before you do, make sure to put your base gasket on and make sure both your dowel pins are in. I mean, you can live without the dowel pins, but I highly recommend you have them. Just nice and super taut. Alright, I'll be right back. Okay, so we're ready to put the base gasket on. And if you don't know which one to use, remember the paper one is base gasket, and then the metal one will always be cylinder head, because that's going to be the hottest area on the machine, whereas the base isn't going to be quite as hot. So make sure you got your dowel pins in. I think I already went over that. And get them down there a little ways. I guess we can start getting the piston through as well. And cam chain. Make sure you get the cam chain through. Careful not to tear the gasket. It's kind of hard to do that, but what have you. There. Now once you get them set down on, bam, nice and flush. Again, make sure your sealing surfaces are clean. Wipe down. Now we can put the cylinder on. And this is going to be a bitch because it doesn't have groove cutouts for... Oh yeah, I forgot about the fender thing. It doesn't have groove cutouts to assist with installing the piston on it. So now, once again, you're going to need your oil. This is just to assist going on. I'm just going to put... That's actually really full. I'm going to make a mess if I pour. So I'm not going to pour, just going to use a finger and rub it all the way around the edge of the piston crown, over the rings, make sure it gets in between the rings and what have you. Try not to spin them, just lightly rub. Lightly rub. Make sure that oil gets in there, and you can take the excess and wipe it around the initial cylinder bore. And now, time to wipe off these fingers. Nasty. Okay, now the fun part. You get to squeeze one ring at a time and slowly slide this cylinder over this piston. One at a time. And this will be time consuming and tedious and a pain in the ass. Better if I was on the other side. One down. Now, final is the oil seal rings, which is usually the toughest, because you can't really assist all that much. But a little shaking, a little rocking, and feels like I'm trying to skip over it somewhere. Feels pretty tough. And this cam chain guide needs to be in the cylinder outside of it. Come on. And there's the edge right there. Couldn't be in a more pain in the ass spot either. Just using my thumbnail to help us just push it in or compress it. It'd be easier to do this edge first. Okay, got that one on, or that side of it on. I think I just got that other side too. I think. There you go. Alright, and now, before you slide it all the way down, put your cam chain up and through. Just hold on your cam chain, and I'm going to make sure this piston slides down. Got hair there. Okay, it's going. There we go. Now, pull the cam chain, make sure she gets in there nice and deep like. Sits over the dowel pins, rests in there nice and neat. Sweet. And now, before you put the cylinder head gasket on, don't forget about your other cam chain guide. These are going to be up top on the cylinder, of course. This is where the chain rides. I don't know if you saw any of that, but you're going to slide him down and you can watch the inside. And right underneath the mag, just kind of watch right under the chain too, there's a slot that it's got to go in. And it won't have any play once it's in that slot. And plus it'll keep the cam chain from rolling off of the sprocket on the crankshaft. And make sure you get your dowel pins in. Can't remember, I think they were crisscross. Pretty sure they're crisscross. One there and one there. And this is your oil stud. This is where all the oil transfers up to the top of your cylinder head. We'll get to that later though, when we put on the cylinder head. So, cylinder head gasket, just make sure the cam chain goes through. Make sure it sits down nice and flush. There you go. And now you can put the cylinder head on. Trying not to get in too much way of the picture or camera frame. Slide your cam chain in. I want to kind of hold it so it doesn't get in the way when you set the cylinder head down. Having a hard time going over that bottom cam chain guide. There we go though. Kind of make sure it sets down all the way. There we go. If it doesn't sit flush, I wouldn't start tightening anything down because you probably have a problem and you might create or cause some damage. So just make sure everything sits flush before you start tightening it down. Now I'm going to go ahead and install the cylinder head nuts. The one with the copper washer goes on the bottom right hand side of the bike's cylinder head stud, so this guy down here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the cylinder head nuts on and torque them down. Torque specs will be in the description, as any capacities or other torque specs that I find. So after I get these torqued down, I will be back for timing. Okay, so for timing this machine, it's much easier with the spark plug out, FYI. We're gonna roll this up to, chain's starting to wad up. Roll this back to top dead center. There's our F, and then our T. So we're gonna make sure our T is lined up with this mark right here. Yes, it is. And now we're going to put the cam sprocket on. Let me wipe this down real quick. Dirty bitch. Anyways, so now it's the fun part. We have an F for fire and a T for top dead center. So obviously we're going to want it on T. Your indentation mark is right here on the top of the cylinder head. So we're going to set this cam in there. And hopefully we get really close to top dead center. Looks like we're one tooth off. So we're just going to walk the chain one tooth. And boom, top dead center. And now, the fun part, rolling this cam to where you can get the screws on. Okay, so I was having a hard time going on the cam, so I just kind of rocked it on like that. And our screw holes are a little ways off, so I'm going to take a pick and spin it a little bit to get the holes lined up like so. And we're going to get our camshaft sprocket bolts. I'm going to put a little Loctite on them as well. Just a little drop on each end, putting red on this. Then we're just going to go ahead and screw them in and then tighten them down, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm just hanging on to the mag as I tighten these on, tighten these up, and then I'm going to rotate it in normal direct or engine rotation to make sure we're still timed. Roll back, roll forward. That way all the slack is up where the cam chain tensioner is. Make sure we're still timed. We're still timed. Still timed. Top dead center, top dead center. And now for the test to make sure that you're at top dead center, you're going to install your cam chain tensioner. So I'll be right back after I do this. Okay, camshaft sprocket, it's tightened, it's on there. And we re-verified timing, made sure it's a top dead center, top dead center, top dead center on the T's. And now we need that screwdriver to release the tension on, or apply tension on the cam chain. So you're just going to reach down here, a little counterclockwise motion, it'll break free, and you can just let it go. And it'll auto tension after that. And now to re-verify timing, because you don't want to just go ahead and throw it together and accidentally be one tooth off and have some problems. So you're just going to roll it nice and slow by hand. This is much easier with spark plug out. It's going to be a little tough because you got to fight the springs on the valves. But we're just going to go one whole turn. We're going back to top dead center. If you run into like a stop point and it's really tough, do not apply a lot of pressure. Back off and re-verify timing, because you might be touching the valve with the piston, one of the valves. It'll be intake. So top dead center still. Perfect. Good. Don't have to take that back apart and try again. So at this point, I'm just going to put this little 10mm cap bolt on this guy, and then I'm going to clean up the sealing surfaces here for the ignition cover and on the ignition cover and get ready to install that since we're timed. You know what? Change of plan. I'm still going to put this guy on, but I'm going to go ahead and do the valve adjustment. Make sure the valves are still adjusted and within spec. That way I can verify I'm still on top dead center, you know, and not getting a bad measurement. So I'll be right back after that. And if you don't know how to do that, hopefully I remember to put a link right here for that too. Alright, so got the valves adjusted on this one. Now we're ready to put the ignition cover on because we have triple checked timing and we're golden. So got all the sealing surfaces cleaned up on the stator cover, mag cover, and its mating surface on the case half. So I put the dowel pins back in here just to have them hold everything in place on this one. And I'm trying to stay out of camera frame, but I'm probably going to have to do a photo bomb. Maybe not. So, and you want to wipe everything down, make sure everything's nice and dry, and what have you, and then you put this on. Oh, and you might want to put a little bit of silicone on the little rubber for the stator and pulsar coil connector. Make sure it sits nice and flush all by itself. And then we're going to go ahead and put all the screws in, tighten it down. And I'll also throw the cam sprocket cover back on, and then I'll be back on the other side for the tappet covers and the oil line. So I'll be right back when I'm all done with this side. Alright, so we're over here on this side of the machine now. I bolted up the ignition coil, the choke plunger, installed the ignition cover, cam cover, sprocket cover, and the shifter over there before I moved over yonder. And we are on the final stretch of this bad boy. So after I do this, finish tightening up all of these last couple things, I'm going to put the oil in the bike just so as we're going together we can see if we start developing a leak somewhere and need another gasket or need to come apart, put some silicone in some areas where it's not sealing or what have you, but just to see if it starts leaking here. Now after that, I'll be putting on the intake system, exhaust system, skid plate in that order, and then gas tank, and we'll be ready for our first heat cycle then. So I'll see you there at that stage. Alright, startup's good. I'll probably have to turn up the idle just a little bit. That little chugging sound is the intake. This air filter needs to be replaced. Really bad. If you have smoke at first, that's fine. Remember, you put a whole bunch on the piston and then the cylinder. So, as long as it doesn't continuously do this, then you're going to want to wait for the engine to get warmed up before you start getting it ready. Make sure she gets warm. You can come down here and fill the cylinder head. See, I need to turn up the idle. But yeah. Anyways, after your heat cycle, you'll check for leaks. You're going to retorque your cylinder head nuts, and you should be golden and ready to go, and you can go back together. Right on. Not a bad little kit. Didn't take very long at all. Alright, so we're all done with the big bore kit installation, and I do have to say it's pretty simple and easy. My only complaint is that it did not come with a bunch of gaskets that I would have appreciated, you know, like the O-rings for all the sealing surfaces, just to make sure there's no leaks, even though we didn't have any when we were all done. But it's pretty simple to install. Don't forget your heat cycles, and that's only to help seat the rings to the cylinder. And after that, you should be golden. I did have to make some adjustments on the carburetor, on the air fuel screw, and the idle, but other than that, there was no major jetting on the carburetor. So pretty simple and easy. Well worth the money. Good job, BBR.